The title of this Congress, Flemish Art, Local and Global, suggests objects that operate on and cross thresholds. In the 17th century, Antwerp Kunstkasten did just that. They existed between local and global, ornament and utility, 2- and 3-dimensional space, and pictorial and applied arts. They underscore the cross-fertilization of media, materials, knowledge, cultural idioms, and geographic identities in early modern Southern Netherlandish art. And it is for these reasons that they often fall through the cracks of art historical scholarship and museum presentations, where they are presented as static pieces of furniture or domestic ornament. The role of early modern collection as a catalyst of knowledge has been much discussed in recent years. Spaces designated for organizing, displaying, and contemplating artworks, scientific instruments, and natural specimens served as crucial sites for generating and framing knowledge about art, geography, and the natural world, among other things. The collection was often seen as a microcosm of the larger world. If we adjust our lens and zoom into these collections further, we are confronted with an even greater microcosm, the self-standing cabinet. The early modern cabinet, which reached its apex in the 17th century, was a source of information, fascination, secrets, and entertainment. It was in many ways just as potent as the collection in its ability to mediate knowledge. As both a site for the intersection of multiple media, from prints and paintings to textiles, sculpture, and metalwork, and a unique medium in and of itself, the cabinet's formal and material properties enabled it to embody and transmit knowledge in very specific ways. One of these ways was as a cross-cultural object and a site of material globalization that was embedded in a complex matrix of material, commercial, and patronage networks that spanned Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas. In the 17th century, Kunstkasten were manufactured in great numbers in Antwerp. As objects with German origins, constructed from imported materials and knowledge, marketed to a diverse pan-European audience, and traded for goods from the Americas, Kunstkasten were truly global objects. These cabinets not only contained, but also transformed and recontextualized the objects stored inside them. Furthermore, their multimedia construction, which recruited the diverse skills of Antwerp artists and craftsmen, and their incorporation of pictorial programs that referenced paintings, prints, book illustrations, and textiles, promoted and disseminated local crafts and idioms internationally. This case study examines how Kunstkasten played an important role in the global dispersal of Southern Netherlandish art in the 17th century and beyond. But first, a brief overview of the origins and evolution of the Kunstkast, an object whose form is inextricably related to Antwerp's cultural, economic, and intellectual environment around 1600. The second half of the 16th century saw a marked diversification of pictorial genres and types of furniture, as well as a heightened focus on luxury industries in Antwerp. These factors, along with an artisanal culture that fostered high-level craftsmanship and collaboration, laid the groundwork for the emergence of the Kunstkast as one of Antwerp's chief exports in the 17th century. I should mention that Kunstkast is a relatively modern term, having been coined in an early 20th century catalogue of Netherlandish furniture in the Rijksmuseum. In 17th century Netherlandish inventories and sales records, a wide range of terms, including kantoor, kabinet, tresor, kist, comptoir, and schrijbaan are employed, often interchangeably to describe decorated cabinets. The growing number of terms used to describe these high-end cabinets in the early modern period indicates the need to differentiate them from more utilitarian models and alludes to their status as a novel art form. Additionally, the linguistic diversity of the terms associated with these cabinets reflects their international character, as the market for German, Netherlandish, French, Spanish, and Italian models overlapped and intersected. The origins of the Antwerp Kunstkast can be traced back to southern Germany. The 16th century cabinets produced in Nuremberg and Augsburg featured simple wood marquetry or plain ebony. This changed when the Augsburg merchant, banker, and art collector Philipp Heinhofer, in conjunction with a phalanx of skilled artisans, developed a more opulent type of cabinet, combining artworks, naturalia, and precious exotic materials in the early years of the 17th century. These cabinets were not part of the open market, but instead were tailor-made for elite collectors and were frequently given as diplomatic gifts. In addition to German precursors, the popular escritorio, a Spanish tabletop cabinet with a surface for writing, presumably also influenced the rise of the Antwerp Kunstkast. 17th century Kunstkasten were distinct in many ways from other types of cabinets produced in Europe. Unlike Heinhofer's cabinets, Kunstkasten developed into a commercial enterprise and became widely available on the open market. The increasingly diverse clientele for these cabinets stimulated the introduction of novel materials, styles, formats, and functions. The integration of miniature oil paintings into cabinet facades and the inclusion of perspectives, mirrored compartments with tiled floors that created various optical effects when an object, such as a small sculpture, was placed in the center, were unique to Antwerp cabinets. With these two significant additions, Antwerp Kunstkasten offered potential clients both a portable art gallery and a laboratory for optical experimentation and entertainment. Kunstkasten firmly established the place of Antwerp artisans in an international market. Nearly all of the materials used in their production were foreign-sourced and relied on the city's vast trade networks. The cabinet pictured in these two paintings by Jan van der Heyden is made from ebony, which came to Antwerp from San Domingo in West Africa via Spanish ports, ivory, a staple of Portuguese traders, and tortoiseshell, which was imported by the Portuguese and from the Antilles via Amsterdam. Silver, mined in Austria and central Germany, as well as the Spanish Americas, was used to decorate Kunstkasten. Japanese lacquerware and Chinese porcelain acquired by the Dutch East India Company were also important influences on Kunstkast design. The Antwerp technique of embedding mother of pearl in black lacquer was likely inspired by Japanese export goods. Like the metropolis in which they were manufactured, Kunstkasten were significant centers of accumulation, and their value was in large part linked to their ability to transform globally sourced raw materials into a locally produced luxury product. In order to transform these diverse materials, several specialists were required, and as shown by Sven Dupre's work on the glass perspectives made for Antwerp art cabinets, this knowledge often depended on the influx of foreign craftsmen, such as the Italian merchants who set up shop in Antwerp and brought with them the knowledge of how to make cristallo glass. Skilled immigrants shared their knowledge and collaborated with receptive local craftsmen to create cabinets that mediated the familiar and the foreign. Dealers based locally and abroad then determined the most appropriate materials and designs for various audiences all over Europe. For example, the art dealer Jean-Michel Picard, based in Paris, communicated with his counterpart Matthijs Mousson in Antwerp in order to relay local market tastes, which for Paris meant small or medium-sized cabinets decorated with tortoiseshell. Tracing the various trade, export, and patronage circuits of Kunstkasten and their materials reveals multifaceted object biographies, which are made even more complex and intriguing when one considers that the cabinets themselves were exchanged by art dealers in Cadiz, Sevilla, and Vienna for products that were brought back from the Americas. These items included indigo and cochineal, dried animal skins, tobacco, precious stones, and exotic woods, many of which had artisanal value. The records of the dealership Forgeron also included instances of exchanging cabinets for paintings by Antwerp artists. This circular trajectory in which foreign materials imported to Europe were used in the manufacture of cabinets, which were then exported and sold abroad, and subsequently traded for other exotic artisanal raw materials, bears further examination. Additionally, in the extensive early modern cabinet collections of the V&A are examples made on the western coast of the Indian subcontinent, and I show a few examples here really quickly: New Spain, China, and Sri Lanka. These cabinets combined local materials, techniques, and iconographies with European cabinet styles and were intended for export, local trade, and use by traveling merchants and missionaries. While Kunstkasten's plurality of precious and global materials underscored Antwerp's significant role in international trade networks on the one hand, their incorporation of a vast range of distinctly Netherlandish imagery boldly asserted Antwerp's pictorial traditions and rich art historical lineage on the other hand. The coexistence of multiple media and pictorial idioms in these cabinets undoubtedly appealed to liefhebbers and collectors, who would have appreciated the connoisseurial challenge they offered, as well as the opportunity to acquire a portable miniature collection of artworks. In this sense, the Kunstkast can be compared to another uniquely Antwerpian art form, the Kunstkamer painting that emerged around the same time. Several Antwerp painters, including Frans Franken and Jan van Kessel, worked with both media. producing easel paintings of collections and painting small-scale panels to decorate cabinets. Both are composite works that feature the collaboration or virtual collaboration of multiple local artists and artisans. Additionally, their juxtaposition of a diverse range of images, styles, and objects provide a framework for contemplating the organization and transformation of things through collecting. The Kunstkammer painting's visual commentary on local attitudes towards art, artists, and collecting, which Sierke Filipczuk has called art about art, is similar, in my opinion, to the Kunstkast's self-conscious and methodical framing of Antwerp pictorial and craft traditions. The omnipresence of Netherlandish images and their fluid translation across thresholds of space, time, and medium in 17th century art cabinets merits further investigation. Old and New Testament stories, ancient myths, idyllic landscapes, violent hunts, and battle scenes were among the subjects painted on materials ranging from copper to marble, but also were embroidered, as well as carved in wood or ivory and inlaid with precious stones. The religious and mythological scenes that were popular in the first half of the 17th century were primarily derived from paintings, print series, or book illustrations. However, the more secular battles, exotic hunts, and allegories that flourished in the latter part of the century were often original compositions. Paintings by local contemporary masters like Rubens and Frans Franken were popular models, as were prints by an earlier generation of artists that included Maarten de Vos and Jan Wieriks. The images that decorate Antwerp cabinets have yet to be looked at critically. The miniature oil paintings, which were typically produced as quickly as possible by anonymous artists, tend to be dismissed as being of poor quality. When they are studied, the focus has been on source hunting or the identification of printed and painted prototypes rather than any sustained analysis of the works themselves. Images in other media, such as embroidery, stonework, and carving, are usually resigned to a purely formal or technical study. But while the pictorial programs of Antwerp art cabinets may not be particularly noteworthy in terms of quality or originality, their repetition and translation in liminal settings, such as doors, drawers, and lids, raises interesting questions about the mobility of images between different kinds of media. Craig Clunis has argued that when examining images that circulate between multiple cultures and media, it is often more useful to think about exchanges between different economies of representation than to seek out stylistic influences or sources. This approach is particularly useful for probing the many questions raised by the intermediality of Kunstkasten. How did the translation of 16th and early 17th century printed images into later three-dimensional movable cabinets affect the image's value, currency, and meaning? How were images from travel accounts and map borders translated into painted, lacquerware, and engraved panels on Kunstkasten? What connotations resulted from representing the taste for the exotic with globally sourced materials on cabinets that often contained imported objects inside them? Furthermore, what did the circulation of such images through multiple diverse media indicate about the instability of the global knowledge that they depicted? Thinking about these cabinets as not merely furniture or containers, but as active sites of intersection between local and global and pictorial, applied arts, and architecture prompts us to reconsider modern divisions between these categories in early modern terms. It also demands acknowledgement of the crucial role played by collaborative craftsmanship, dealer intervention, global trade networks, and colonialism in their production and consumption. Further examination of the composite and global origins and makeup of Kunstkasten will, I hope, open up new doors, pun intended, for understanding the multivalent ways in which they functioned and generated meaning in the 17th century and beyond. Thank you.